Hey folks, this is another video in a series that aspires to teach Google Apps Scripts spreadsheet app to beginners. In our previous lessons, we have explored how to access Google Sheets workbooks, how to create them from scratch, how to make copies of them, how to access the sheets within the workbook, how to read data, how to write data, how to read data from one sheet and then write it to another, how to dynamically access ranges. We're going to resume by navigating to the Files module, where we will be creating a new script file. This lesson is going to focus on appending data to a sheet. So we're going to call it h_sheet_append. We're going to hit enter. We'll rename our function sheet, capital A, append, and we will save our project. So what we're going to be exploring is we have this sheet here, sheet 2, where we have a name and a location. We are going to look to add data to the bottom of this without removing it. So in our previous lesson, we looked at ways to take data from one Google Sheet tab and then write it to another one. But in doing so, we cleared the range so that then we could rewrite all of the data. So this example is going to explore methods for appending data. So we are not going to be working with a sheet. So if you have a sheet that has new data coming into it, this lesson will not focus on that, but this will just explore how to set up a logic system to append data to the next line. So we're going to go back to our spreadsheet app, or our app script. We're going to go to line 2. We'll hit enter. We're going to add 2 slashes for a comment. And now we're going to access the workbook. So we're going to hit enter and tab, and we'll declare a variable of WB, which will be set to spreadsheet app dot. At this point, you will pick one of the 3 methods that we have previously discussed in order to access your workbook. I'm using a bound script, so I'm going to be using get active spreadsheet with an open parentheses that takes no arguments. I'm going to hit the right arrow on my keyboard and add a semicolon. If you are not using a bound app script, or if you would like to write data to another sheet or another workbook that your app script is not bound to, then you will have to use the get open by ID method or the open by URL. My apologies, that's not get open by ID, it is open by ID. So you just do dot open by ID or dot open by URL. You're going to hit enter twice, hit the left arrow on your keyboard twice, add 2 slashes for another comment. Now we're going to access the sheet we want to append data to. So we're going to hit enter and tab. We're going to declare a variable of sheet, and we'll set that equal to wb.getSheetByName, and we'll have an open parentheses. Get sheet by name takes 1 argument, which is a string. So we are going to add single quotes or double quotes. You can pick depending upon what you've been using throughout this project. So we're going to go to our workbook. You can either double click on the tab and copy the name, or you can just type it into get sheet by name. Hit the right arrow on your keyboard twice, add a semicolon, hit enter twice, hit the left arrow twice, 2 slashes for a comment, and now identify the data you want to write or append. So we'll hit enter and tab. So we're going to create a variable called data, which will be set to a 2-dimensional array. So we're going to create square brackets. We're going to hit enter. We're going to add square brackets. The structure of the data or the range that we are attempting to write to has 2 columns. One is name and one is location. So we are going to want to keep that same column structure. So we are going to add single quotes here, and we will write a name of Kevin, and we will set it comma, and have single quotes and then write Alabama. So we'll just keep it at that for now. We'll hit enter once, enter twice, left arrow on our keyboard twice, add 2 slashes for a comment, and now we will dynamically identify the range we want to append to. So we're going to hit enter and tab. So we're going to use that sheet variable from line 7. We'll use the dot method, and we will do get capital R range, and we will have open parentheses. So here's where we're going to use some of the stuff that we learned in previous videos. We are going to want to dynamically identify the last row in the spreadsheet. So getRange takes 4 arguments. 2 are mandatory. The first is your starting row. So when you're looking to append data, you're going to be dealing with a dynamic starting point. So you're not going to be able to hard code that you want to start at row 1, column 1, because you don't know what row is going to be the blank row. So what we're going to do is we are going to dynamically calculate the range by using sheet.get capital L last row. And we have an open parentheses. So this is going to give us the last row of the sheet, which will return the number 4. So we don't want to write to row 4 because there's already data there. So we're going to go to the right of .get last row. We're going to hit space. We're going to add a plus sign. We're going to add a space, and then we're going to use number 1. So what will happen is sheet.get last row will identify the last row in the sheet that has data entry. It will then add 1 to it, which will give us the first empty row. We're going to add a comma. We're going to start at column 1 because the data is in column A. We are going to go, we'll hard code this for now, but actually, you know what we could do? We could do data dot length will give us the number of data points in our array, and then we will do a comma, and we'll do data square bracket 0 dot length, and that will give us the number of columns in the data, or in the data array, because we are accessing the first array in the 2-dimensional array, and then we are measuring the number of elements that exist in there. So in the event that we need to expand this data array, this data square bracket 0 dot length will dynamically expand with it. We're going to go to the right of our .get range parentheses, and we're going to do .set capital V values with an S, and we'll have an open parentheses, and we will pass in our data variable. We'll hit the right arrow on our keyboard, and we're going to add a semicolon. Now, in order to provide some visibility into what is happening in line 15, I'm going to backtrack a little bit. I'm going to hit the up arrow on my keyboard once. I'm now on line 14. I'm going to hit the up arrow on my keyboard twice. I am now hard left on line 13. So I'm going to hit tab. I'm going to hit enter. I'm going to add 2 slashes for a comment, hit space, and now I will be logging for transparency. I'm going to hit enter and tab. So what we're going to do is we are going to log things out. So we're going to do 3 logging statements in order to look at sheet.get last row plus 1, data.length, and data square bracket 0 dot length. So we're going to write logger.log, open parentheses. We're going to use single quotes, and we'll say this is the starting row. We're going to add a colon and a space. We're going to hit the right arrow on our keyboard and a space. We're going to add plus space, and then we are going to copy sheet.get last row plus 1. And what this will do is it will give us some string comprehension here, so that it will say this is the starting row plus, and then whatever the output is. So we're going to go to the right, we'll add a semicolon, we're going to hit enter, and we're going to do another logger.log. and we'll do single quotes, and we will say this is the number of rows we need. And we're going to add a colon and a space. We're going to hit the right arrow on our keyboard with a space. We're going to add a plus symbol and a space. And now we'll do data.length. We'll go to the right, add a semicolon, hit enter. We're going to do our final log here, which will say logger.log, open parentheses, single quote, and we will do this. These are the number of columns we need. We'll add a colon and a space. We'll hit the right arrow on our keyboard and a space. We'll do a plus sign and a space, and we'll do data, square bracket, 0. Hit the right arrow on your keyboard, dot length. Hit the right arrow on your keyboard. I misspelled length there. Make sure all your spelling is correct. Add a semicolon, hit enter, and now we're ready to attempt to run our project. So before I do this, I just want to show you that right now row 5 is empty, and if this works as expected, Kevin and Alabama should appear there. So we're going to hit run. And now you can see that we have an issue here where we are getting a concatenation of sheet.getLastRow plus 1, giving us 41 in the output console, which hopefully is not how it ends up in the get range, but we'll see that and correct it if we need to. We're seeing that the number of rows we need is 1, which is correct, and the number of columns we need is 2, which is also correct. So we're going to go to our sheet. We are seeing Kevin in row 5. So this might just be an issue with our console log where we need to wrap this into a number, because I think what happened was we concatenated a string plus sheet.getLastRow, which gave us 4, and then the 4 was transformed from an integer into a string because it was concatenated with a string. And then once the number 1 was added, because it was adding it to a string of this is the starting row, colon, space, 4, it just concatenated it all. But when we actually used it in the getRange method, it appeared as expected with the number 5. So what we're going to do now is we are going to act as if we are extracting this data from another Google Sheet. So we will change this name to be Larry and Philadelphia. And we're going to go to the right and we're going to add another array, and we'll do square brackets, David, square brackets, Texas. So what should happen is lines 6 and 7 should have Larry and then David with their associated locations. And then we should get, we should still get row 6 as the last row, right? So we should get 5 plus 1 will give us 6. We should get rows we need as 2, and the columns we need to be 2. So let's see what happens. Cool. So you can see we're getting, this is the starting row, which is number 6. We need 2 rows of data because data.length is giving us the number of arrays in our 2-dimensional array. And then data square bracket 0.length is giving us the number of elements in our array. So we're going to go back in here, and now you can see that Larry and David have been appended to the sheet. Cool. So now what we're going to do is we are going to try another thing here, which will be appending more values. So let's just say that this is like an amount or something. So we're adding in an extra element to our array. And even though we're doing that, we are going to be getting, we're going to be able to write this, even though this will not have a header column over here. So the reason I'm doing this is because I want you to see that the columns will dynamically expand. So the same way that we were able to add another array that gave us more rows, adding in more columns here will allow us to write to 8 and 9, A, B, and C. So when we go and run our script, we should get, I think 9 as our 8 as our starting row, and that we need 2 rows, and then we need 3 columns. And when we go to our data set, you can see that Debbie, Philadelphia, and the amount, Barry, Texas, and the amount are written to the sheet. So the whole point of this was to give you a sense of the underlying logic to append data to a sheet. I personally don't have many projects where I append data. I would rather extract the full amount of data and then write it to the sheet as a complete data set. That way I don't duplicate data or I don't miss data or anything like that. So, the extraction method is going to be a similar thing that is going to be dependent upon your project. The approach here was to give you an introduction into how to write appended data to a new environment. If you do have projects that need to have dynamic data extraction for the purposes of appending, feel free to reach out in the comments or send me an email. The best thing to do is to give me an example sheet. You don't have to give me your live data, especially if it's sensitive, but if you just kind of give me a mock-up of how the data is flowing in, then I'll do my best to craft a solution around it. My use cases are primarily coming from databases or from faux databases. So a database is something that a data engineering team manages, and a faux database is something where I have peers who enter data into a spreadsheet or an Airtable base or whatever, and they just want to get it from there and put it somewhere else. So a lot of my stuff is not focusing on appending. It's really about just extracting all the data entry and then moving it places.
I hope you found this video helpful. If you'd like to learn more about Google Apps Script or the spreadsheet app, then check out the playlist in the description.